What's happening, everybody? Grand Prix GTP02 here, kicking it back today here at Clear Lake Subaru out here in Clear Lake, Texas. And with me today is the 2017 Subaru Forester XT Touring. It's time to see what we can make of this family SUV that has the heart of a legendary rally car. So here we are, the 2017 Subaru Forester XT Touring. Quite a mouthful to say about this SUV already, but believe me, with as much stuff as there is crammed into our test vehicle today, it is definitely befitting of such an elongated title. But let's go ahead and start off with the major headlines. And I'm going to say for starters that it really doesn't feel like all that long ago that Subaru actually launched this SJ body style Forester, now representing the 4th generation of Subaru's longest running SUV namesake. Having come out in 2014, this SJ body style has actually come a long way, especially when it comes to the introduction of some of Subaru's safety technology and all sorts of other goodies that you'll see throughout the review. Now, starting off here with the exterior, for starters, I love the color on our particular vehicle here. This is the Quartz Blue Pearl. It's a very nice oceanic kind of blue, and it really catches the sunlight very nicely with the pearlescent paint. But here on the exterior, the XT really shows a lot more aggression than just the standard 2.5 liter model, which is just the only other trim that you can get out of the 2 for the 2017 model year. Now, if you want to talk about aggression, you start here at the front with these steering responsive LED projector headlights with the factory LED accents borrowed from a lot of Subaru's other vehicles in the lineup. And you can see they lavished it with a lot of things like gloss black. You have the black accent up here. And if you actually look right inside that little area in there, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it actually says Forester on the inside, which is kind of a nice little deal. Those steering responsive headlights are part of the upper end XT trim, and also a part of the XT trim is this aggressive front fascia with everything from the chrome trimmed and gloss black accented hexagonal grille here in the front, which is wide open, of course, to make room not only for the top mount intercooler, which you really wouldn't know is there unless this thing had a hood scoop on it, but then of course also the large radiator in the front. Now, unfortunately, these little vents here, or what look like vents, are actually not functional, unlike some of the other compact SUVs in this segment, which offer little aerodynamic slots that help in brake cooling and stuff like that. Unfortunately, those are actually fake, but you do have the standard fog lights down below, lavished in a little bit of chrome as well. And overall, I really love the exterior design, especially here at the front of the Forester. Now, even though this thing has the turbocharged FA20 2-liter boxer engine borrowed from the WRX, this thing still is built to tackle the rough stuff. 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which ironically is also on par with the Subaru Outback and the Subaru Crosstrek. It used to be about 7.5 inches, but Subaru has since raised that right up to allow this thing to actually have a little bit more off-road credibility than it had before. Now, also down here, one of the revisions that Subaru has made for 2017 are these new 18-inch machine-faced and painted alloy wheels. They do have the black accents on the inside. It's kind of a mixed opinion with most. They do look a little small. The tires kind of look a little bit too fat in most opinions. It doesn't exactly fill up the wheel well very nicely. But then again, you have 4-wheel disc brakes all the way around, and again, the introduction of Subaru's EyeSight driver assistance technology, which also has something to do with the brakes, but I'll get to that here in just a little bit. On the outside here, we also have body-colored exterior mirrors with the integrated turn signals. This one has one of the biggest sunroofs I've ever seen that's not panoramic up here on the roof, and you'll see how big it is from the inside as well. Now also here on the outside we do have Subaru's advanced smart key keyless access. So you have the rib pattern at the front, you just touch that to lock the vehicle, grab the handle to unlock it. And moving around the side profile is really not that big of an SUV at first glance, but I will tell you that this thing is definitely very roomy for the compact SUV segment. Now moving around here to the back, again, really not too many revisions as far as design is concerned, as far as the overall design cues and things like that. You do have the clear lens taillights. These are LEDs. They've reworked the inner workings of it just a little bit from 2014 and 15 up. But other than that, again, really not too much to talk about here at the back of the vehicle. There is one thing, however, and it is a part of the EyeSight driver assistance, or excuse me, actually it's not. It's actually a separate feature all on its own. Which is the rear collision braking. If this vehicle is backing up using the reverse backup camera up here as well, if it senses an object behind you, such as another car, a person, or something, and it senses you're going to hit it, it will actually apply the brakes for you in reverse, which is pretty much category first. I've not heard of it in any other compact SUVs in this particular segment. But overall, here on the exterior, I think the Forester looks absolutely amazing. It's a very aggressive car, and depending on how you equip it, it can be very good value for the money in terms of design and in terms of exterior technology alone. But as much as there is to talk about on the outside of this thing, believe me, once we get inside, there is going to be a lot more than just looks and other things like that. Now moving on and examining the interior of the Forester, I will start off by saying that if you've ever been in any of Subaru's vehicles from about 2014 onwards, you're going to notice a lot of similarities in terms of styling cues, in terms of technology, and also in terms of overall ambiance between this Forester and a lot of the other vehicles in their current lineup. Now for starters, one thing that is a bit of a letdown for me is the aesthetics. I mean, you do have things such as the perforated and padded leather here in the middle part of the door, but up here where I'm going to rest my elbow, possibly up here on the upper edge of the door, it's all very hard touch material. It doesn't feel like plastic, it just kind of feels a little rubbery, but very hard to the touch. But you also have padded leather down here on the armrest. You have a little bit of semi-perforated leather here on the door grip. And then of course you have all your electronic conveniences that you would expect in a vehicle like this, including power mirrors, power door locks, your window locks. You have an automatic up-down window for both the driver and passenger in the front, as well as the back two power windows as well. And also this one being fully loaded, it does have the two-person memory driver seat setting as well, including the 10-way power adjustable driver seat, including 4-way distance, 2-way recline, and your 2-way lumbar support as well. Now for starters, one thing that's also another little bit of a letdown is the contour of the seats themselves. It's not bad, but there's not a whole lot of bolstering to hold you in. So I'm not the widest of frames. I'm 185 pounds and 6'1", and I do feel comfortable in the front seats. Believe it or not, they're not as hard as you might think. The leather feels a little bit on the firm side, but at the same time, there is a good bit of padding in here, and I can actually find a comfortable position once I actually get settled down. Now once you finally sit yourself down inside the cockpit of the Forester, the first thing I notice personally is just how easy it is to actually get in and out of the vehicle, and not to mention the ride height. Even though this thing has about 9 inches of ground clearance overall, it still does feel relatively easy to get into. You don't have to step up and in, but nor do you have to step down and in. It's sort of just that same slide in process that you get with a lot of other small SUVs in this particular segment. Now it is getting a little warm in here, so we will go ahead and start this thing up. This is Subaru's new key fob, as you saw earlier. You actually have to push the Subaru logo itself to actually unlock the vehicle. But the key fob itself, it's nice and pocket-sized. It does have a little bit of weight to it, so we'll go ahead and put that in the cup holder there. You do have push-button ignition with a little light on the button that lets you know when the key fob is recognized. So when you put your foot on the brake with the key fob in the vehicle, you notice the little green light on the button. Once you do that, you just simply hit the button and you should get some power. And of course, in typical Subaru fashion, when you start it up, the gauges do that nice little sweep back and forth as well. Now, one of the other things that I did notice about the interior of this Forester is that even though there are so many buttons for a lot of things, especially Subaru's EyeSight driver assistance technology that we'll cover here in a moment, everything is so cleanly laid out in here. I mean, yes, you have a lot of buttons here to the left of the steering wheel, certainly a whole lot of buttons here across the wheel itself. You have your liquid crystal display to go through up there in the gauge cluster. You have the smaller screen at the top of the dash, and then of course you have the main 7-inch touchscreen display for things such as the reverse backup camera and Subaru's Starlink application system that we'll also touch on here in a bit. But again, I love how cleanly laid out it is. Everything is legible, and you pretty much know what everything does if you have been properly trained, of course, because again, there is a lot to go over. So for starters, directly in front of you, again, is the 3-spoke leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel. I'm not exactly impressed with the quality of the leather here on the wheel. It could be a little bit more supple, a little bit more soft. It kind of feels a little bit fake and a little plasticky in terms of just its overall feel, but that just could be because the fact this car is brand new. I have no idea. But you also have very soft little 10 and 2 grips up here at the top. Nice place to rest your thumbs and whatnot. You have paddle shifters here on the back of the steering wheel, even though the turbo only comes with the Lineartronic 8-speed CVT automatic transmission with the 8 simulated gears. So if you decide to make yourself feel like you actually have a little bit of performance in this thing, you will use the paddle shifters up here, using the right one to shift up, the left one to shift down. And then on the left-hand side of the wheel, you have things such as your hands-free Bluetooth with voice command. You have your different hands-free radio functions, including changing things like the AM and FM button up here on the wheel. You also have the buttons down here that control the upper portion of the liquid crystal display. So if we can just go through that, you have your Subaru Intelligent Drive, kind of like you get on the WRX STI. You can go through it and actually reset a few things, vehicle runtime, and your digital speedometer. So really not too much to cover in that particular department. But then over here on the right, you also have buttons that can change things such as your active cruise control, your lane departure and lane sway warning. Again, you also have the Subaru Intelligent Drive via these 2 buttons here, and also the heated function for the leather trim steering wheel itself. Now over here to the left of the wheel, you do have a power tailgate with a memory height adjustment, so that's nice that you get that. You do have the blind spot warning, you have traction control, and even a button to turn off the speed responsive headlights, those LED auto adapting headlights up in the front. You actually do have a way to turn that off. But now focusing our attention here on the center console. For starters, the big screen in the middle, again, 7-inch touchscreen display. The responsiveness of the actual screen and the touch sensitivity itself is pretty good. It's not the fastest thing I've ever felt in the world. Unfortunately, I can't show you the map in this one because unfortunately if I touch it, it shows you that the SD card has not been inserted here. But one thing that I can show you is the 8-speaker, 440-watt Harman Kardon audio system in our particular test vehicle here. So we hit audio, you have Sirius XM satellite radio as well as your standard AM and FM functions, but this thing really does put out some good sound.
As well as myself, of course. I've just landed in Japan for my show at Camelot today in Tokyo.
So again, the touch responsiveness isn't exactly the best, but it is definitely responsive enough nonetheless. Also, if you push the apps button here, you can go through things such as your AHA and Pandora internet radio, and then also Subaru's Starlink telematics, which again, I'll go ahead and touch on that. It's very much like what OnStar is to General Motors. It has things such as collision detection, so if the airbags are deployed in the vehicle, you will automatically get a call from the Subaru Starlink call center asking if you're okay, and automatically summon emergency responses and things like that. It also has stolen vehicle detection, so if unfortunately you do find yourself in the case of a stolen vehicle, the Starlink folks can actually help you retrieve your vehicle all the same. Pushing the info button, you can find things such as active fuel prices, you can check stocks, weather, the active sports scores, all the stuff that most people would find on their smartphone. Again, it's a very interesting system, and you can also do that again through the apps function, info settings, your Bluetooth telephone, as I mentioned before. So quite a lot to go through just in the main 7-inch display here. I wouldn't necessarily ask for that to be bigger. I actually do like the way it's very legible, it's very cleanly laid out, and then of course it sits sits right above the dual zone automatic climate control. So you have your fan speed here in the middle, you have your different climate zones, you have the dual mode, which allows you to either cycle between the temperatures on their own or at the same time for both sides. Again, the automatic air conditioning function, or you can simply turn it off, and you also have the front and rear defroster and air conditioning recycling as well. Now, the one thing that might be a little confusing to some is the small little LCD screen up here at the top of the dash. That is controlled via this little toggle and enter switch up here at the top of the dash. So you can do things such as cycle between your active fuel economy. You can see your average fuel economy right here, gives you a different display. It does your trip meter, your average miles, or not your average miles per gallon, but your distance to empty. You get a nice little digital clock. And being the fact that this one is turbocharged, you of course also get a nice little boost gauge that when you rev it, it responds to the active boost pressure in the engine. And then of course you also have a little bit of a different display that kind of does the same thing at the same time. But overall, again, the center console, not too button-laden, not too crazy. I still am very much a fan of the touchscreen system here in the middle. Now, moving down, you do have a couple of little cubby holes down up underneath here. Really not too much to touch down there. But one thing that is worthy of touching on is this little deal right here labeled X Mode. Being the fact that this is a four-wheel drive sport utility vehicle, you push that, and as you can see, it appears up here on your gauge cluster. This little green icon indicates that it has now activated the hill descent control, so that uses the engine's braking power and also the symmetrical all-wheel drive system to take you down or up a slope, preferably down a slope with a little bit more ease. But that also works in touch with the Subaru Intelligent Drive, so if you perhaps don't want to be in X mode, you can push it again and it takes you right back to the SI drive screen all the same. Now, I was going to approach this subject rather lightly, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it, and it's a very sad thing for all the enthusiasts out there that the turbo version of the 2017 Forester does not come available with a manual transmission. I mean, think about it. You have 250 plus horsepower up front, turbocharged performance out of the WRX, and yet they only give you the CVT automatic. But that's not such a bad thing. I mean, this is a utility vehicle. It's not meant to be a sports car. But all the same, you do have the typical park reverse neutral drive. You do have the manual mode if you flick it over, which is what these paddle shifters are up here on the steering wheel. You have 8 simulated gears, unlike the 6 that you got before. And as I said, being the fact it does have the 7-inch touchscreen display, once you put the car in reverse, you do get the reverse backup camera as well. And also, as you can see up there on your screen, you also have the reverse parking assist and the rear automatic braking, again, which is what those sensors were at the back of the vehicle. Now, one final touch, this particular vehicle does have the optional STI leather-wrapped shift knob. Very nice, actually. It does have slightly perforated leather on both sides. It's a nice little trigger in the front, a little bit of black lacquer and silver at the bottom leading off into a leather shift boot, and then, of course, the Subaru Technica International embroidery there on the back of the shift knob as well. And finally, last but not least, we get to our test vehicle's enormous sunroof. Now, this, of course, goes all the way back pretty much to the back seats. It's one of the biggest sunroofs I've ever seen in a compact SUV or in a car in general that's not a panoramic roof, but it's an automatic one touch, so you just simply push the button, you can see it folds back, and you've got a nice little mesh wind guard up there at the front. Now, the one hindrance I will see with this is you have to reach way back here, almost to the back seats, to actually grab a hold of the sunshade. But then also up here, outside of the sunroof controls, you also have your SOS and information button, also the button that turns off the pre-collision warning, and the lane keep assist function that we'll talk about here in just a bit. Now, one of the biggest surprises for me came with the amount of room that you get in the rear seat of the Forester. Being the fact that I am rather tall at 6'1", I would expect it to actually be a little bit more cramped than I was actually surprised to find out it is. I have the driver's seat in the position that I would normally have it, and I can fit my hand, thumb and all, in between my knee and the leather-backed portion of the seat. Now, there are a couple things that I like about this. The fact that Subaru has indented the rear of both the front driver and front passenger seats, so it allows for a little bit better knee room. It's not lined in plastic. That's also a good thing, is the fact that unlike a lot of SUVs, you get the plastic backing on the back. This one has all solid leather. It's nice and padded, so if your knees do happen to hit the back of the seat, at least you're not going to be ramming into some piece of cheap plastic. You do have leather-bound mat pockets for both the backs of the front seats, so all in all, there's quite a lot to say about the back seat already. You have the small center armrest with dual cup holders. These are 60/40 split fold rear seats, and simply done by folding down the little tab, or pulling up on the little tab rather, there for the back of the seat. But overall, very, very impressed with the amount of space that you actually get in the back seat of the Forester as well. Now, opening up the power-assisted liftgate of the Forester, it doesn't matter which one you go with, the 2.5 or the 2.0 XT, you're going to get a very sizable rear compartment. You open up initially to 31.5 cubic feet of space, but if you decide to fold down those 60/40 seats, as I showed you just a minute ago, then you open up to 68.5 cubic feet of space overall with those seats folded down. Now, of course, as you can see here in the back, you also get things such as the carpeted floor mats, you get the all-weather floor mats, the all-weather trunk liner. Again, the power-assisted liftgate does have a memory function, so all you have to do is raise it to the proper height, hold down the button, wait for it to beep just a little bit, and then, of course, when you open the rear tailgate, it will only open to that set height before. Now, you can also fold the seats down via these little triggers here at the back, so that's kind of nice that Subaru gives you an alternate way instead of just pulling up on the tabs to actually release the rear seats. Now, if you want to close the trunk, you can either hit the button up on the rear tailgate or just simply use the key fob. Now, opening the hood of our particular test vehicle today, this is where I feel a lot of enthusiasts are still going to be pleased, because what you're looking at is Subaru's FA20 2-liter horizontally opposed flat 4 boxer engine. Now, this engine, of course, is turbocharged and intercooled. It features direct fuel injection, Subaru's variable valve control. It's a double overhead cam setup with 16 valves. It makes 250 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, which is only 18 horsepower down on the original application in the 2016 and 17 WRX. Now, being the fact that this is an SUV and it is 4-wheel drive, the MPGs, or the miles per gallon, is still pretty good. 23 in the city and 27 on the highway, running on recommended premium unleaded fuels. Now, Subaru say you can run this engine on the regular unleaded fuel, however, that will decrease your horsepower and torque output and definitely affect the miles per gallon at the same time. So now we finally get around to the one feature that I've been hinting about all day, which is Subaru's EyeSight driver assistance technology, not only fitted to this particular Forester and a lot of the other Forester trims as well, but also a lot of Subaru's other vehicles in the upper end range as well. Now, the EyeSight is one of those things that, even though there's a lot of buttons for it, it's not clearly visible from things like the exterior and stuff of the vehicle, but it does include quite a lot of things, including, but is not limited to, the pre-collision throttle management and pre-collision braking systems. You also have lane departure and lane sway warnings. You have the blind spot monitoring. Just a whole lot of different safety features in here. And you did see some of the buttons, like here on the steering wheel, up here by the sunroof controls and whatnot. So there are subtle hints that this car does have quite a lot of safety features as well. Even other things such as the active cruise control, also part of the EyeSight technology system. And then, of course, you get to the number of airbags. Now, this, of course, includes things such as a driver's knee airbag. You have the front impact airbags for both the driver and passenger. You have the side impact airbags located in the seats. And then, of course, these side curtain airbags as located, or as noted by the logos up on the B-pillar here in the middle of the vehicle. So quite a lot of safety to talk about with this vehicle, and that's why the IIHS looked so favorably at the Forester when it went under the crash test surveys. Now, here in the passenger seat, you do have a rather large glove box. It is damped, but it's not lined in felts or anything like that, so no real big deal. Subaru does include a manual for the EyeSight technology as well, which is very nice to have. And overall, I have nothing but great things to say about this Forester. Really, all of the critiques that I had were nothing but nitpickiness, but other than that, I would say that the Forester is definitely a good selection if you're looking for a compact SUV with a whole lot to offer. And unfortunately, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, our time here with the 2017 Subaru Forester XT Touring has now unfortunately come to a close. I do hope you guys have enjoyed this review as much as I have had fun making it for you guys. Now, for starters, before anything else, a huge thank you goes out to the professional and friendly staff and management here at Subaru of Clear Lake. Very professional and very friendly people to work with, and I would highly recommend them for any of your Houston area Subaru needs. But if you guys like what you see, feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment in the box below. And from out here in Clear Lake, Texas, this is Grand Prix GTP 02 signing out until next time.